Welcome back to Money Matters. We're still here with Ms. Natalie Holder of the Barbados Public Workers Cooperative Credit Union Limited. And we were on the subject of marriages within the context of the mortgage. And Natalie, you were about to tell us something very important.
All right. Some people think that because they're married and they're separated for whatever reason, that instantly dissolves any matrimonial interest that the departed party may have. That is not so. So even though you're not living together and you're still married, there's no divorce, we will insist that the person either be a party to the mortgage or they do what is known as a disclaimer of interest or postponement of interest, which simply states, in the event that the credit union had to enforce the security, I will not try to assert a superior interest to theirs.
Okay, Natalie, tell me a little bit about what happens after the mortgage is approved in terms of the legal process.
All right. After the mortgage is approved, the member would be issued with a commitment letter, which encapsulates the terms and conditions of the lending. Our loans department would then send instructions to us to put the legal work in place, make sure the title is correct and satisfactory, make sure we get a mortgage in place, the ancillary security documentation, which is normally the insurances. We want to make sure if you're offering a property, existing property, you're not buying it for the first time, you have your land taxes paid up to date, you have your water paid up to date, because there are certain consequences if those are not paid up to date in terms of the validity of our security. What we will do is if there's an attorney involved on the other side, we will write to the attorney, advise that we put in a mortgage in place, we ask for copies of title deeds so that we can do an investigation of the title to make sure it is good and marketable. We would also list any other security requirements that we require. Mm-hmm. After we've done our searches and we've put the mortgage in place, if you're buying land, it's about a 3-month process. Once we've searched, then the attorney will send us a draft conveyance. We will vet it, make sure it's acceptable, and then you're in a position where you can close, all right? But as I said, that would normally take about 3 months. You can have it done sooner, but it's dependent on the availability of the title deeds, the pace at which the attorneys move. So basically that is it.
So what does the member, the customer, have to pay to have the mortgage put in place in terms of legal fees?
All right. Legal fees are controlled by statute. They're based on a sliding scale and on the consideration of the mortgage. So the greater the amount of the mortgage, the greater the legal fee you would normally have to pay. The law stipulates what are minimum fees. Attorneys are free, depending on the level of work or the complexity of work, to charge above that minimum fee. The credit union tends to charge the minimum fee. All right? The member will be responsible for paying stamp duty to record the mortgage and to record the mortgage. And these are government fees. These are not fees of the credit union. In order to record a document, and you record a document as a safety measure as well, it's public notice to anybody doing business with that person and trying to use that property as a security that there is already an encumbrance.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So we have to ensure that we register our interest on our claim within a certain time. And again, that's a statutory stipulation. Normally it's within 3 months after you've completed the matter.
Something I wanted to know for a while. If a member or any customer that has an approved mortgage doesn't have access to their own attorney, mm-hmm. Would your department be able to provide them with that service?
Yes, we do. That's what I said. We provide the internal service and also that external service to our members. But what I would like to make clear is that it's not a compulsory requirement. You are quite free to choose your legal counsel. If you know somebody else that you would prefer to have your legal work done by them, that is absolutely fine with us. If you would like us to do it, absolutely fine again.
Okay, Natalie, you mentioned earlier when you were speaking of the services that the legal department provides, mm-hmm. you mentioned power of attorney. What exactly is power of attorney and what is it used for?
It's a legally binding document that a person may give to another person so that they can conduct business for them. There are two types. They can be specific, where you can say, I only want you to do X or Y for me. And then you have a general power of attorney where that person is empowered to do anything that you could possibly do for yourself, including mortgage your property, sell your property, maintain actions, access your accounts, close your accounts. It is really a very wide document, a very pervasive document, and I don't normally like to recommend it unless you absolutely have to do it if you're going to be out of the country. And you also have to be very careful as to whom you give a general power of attorney to. And that needs to be recorded as well, because it's a document that you will not only use with a credit union, but any other financial institution, any other person or entity holding security or assets for you. All right. If you're ill temporarily, you can use that power of attorney. The caveat is that a power of attorney only lasts while you're living. The moment you pass, it ceases to be valid. All right. The problem is that the person who is relying on the power of attorney has to know that you've passed, because if they don't know, they will still assume that it is valid and will still allow transactions. All right. So there's a bit of relying on people's ethics and goodwill and good behavior to see that it's operated properly.
Another thing you mentioned earlier was this whole idea of a will. What exactly is a will, and why should I have one?
Yep.
What if a person says, doesn't everything go to my family anyway?
All right. A will is really a document where you appoint somebody to manage your affairs at your death. You stipulate how your assets are to be distributed at your death. Okay. And the reason, let me deal with the last question you asked. Doesn't everything go to my family in any event? If you die and you don't make a will, the law, the Succession Act, will specify how your assets are to be distributed. And that may not necessarily be what you want. Normally, they will under the Succession Act, the property will be distributed between your closest kin, maybe your wife, your children. Where there's no wife or children, your mother, your father. Where there's no wife, children, wife, mother, father, it goes down the list of next in line in terms of kin. That may not be necessarily what you want. If you think about it, you would have worked very hard for your assets, all right? And even if you do not want to distribute them to relatives or family member, there may be charities that you want to assist. Right. There may be a church. You may be thinking that we really need some help in terms of what's happening in the world, and you want to bequeath your money to help with that. And you may have children who are mentally or physically incapacitated. You may die when your children are young, under 18 or just about 18. Do you really want to hand over a big set of money, a house, to an 18-year-old child?
Right.
Would you not want to, as you say, there's this concept of giving a person a fish or teaching that person how to fish.
Right, yes, right. I get you.
It is similar to that. Would you not want to ensure that your child is educated so that he or she has a professional career and they can make a good life? Would you not want to make provisions for future generations? A lot of people make provisions for future generations, and perhaps that is something that we need to look at, creating generational wealth, all right? And this is the way you can do it by a will. You may want to set up a trust. You may want to say, I want that my wife or my spouse be looked after should they become ill. Alzheimer's, we deal a lot with that, dementia. You know, people need to be taken care of. You can do this by a will. If the law says, I give it to X or Y, and X or Y decides, I give it to you, and then something happens. It really allows you to make provision. That's how I like to sell a will. It allows you to make provision for the people you care for. They need not be family members. They may be people who ultimately care for you. Mm-hmm. And some instances your family may not care for you. You may have somebody who does care for you, and you want to show your appreciation for that person. you do it by will. You can't do it under the intestacy laws.
You did mention just now, you mentioned a trust. What exactly is a trust?
All right, this is where you can appoint under your will trustees, where you hand the property or an asset in trust for the benefit of a person. All right. All right. Suppose you were to die, you had children who were 5 or 6. You could appoint a trustee and say to the trustee under the will, you are to manage my assets. You're to retain them in safe investments. The assets are to be used to look after the maintenance of my children, their health, their education to first degree, to master's, to PhD, whatever you care to do, all right? But the point is, and what a trust may be helpful to is sometimes you may be with a person, your children are not their children, or you may have children with a set of children with them, and you have children from a previous relationship. You want to make sure that all the children are taken care of.
Yeah.
Human nature being what it is, your partner may look after the children you have with him or her. But what about those other children? You can create a trust saying, when I pass, this is what I want to happen. This asset is to go for their care, their education, their maintenance, whatever. Okay?
Okay. Okay, Natalie, this was very informative and a lot of fun. Thank you very much for coming.
It's been my pleasure.
And you never know, you might see me come in to discuss
Please
my will.
do.
Well, that was it for Money Matters this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned as much as I did. See you next time on Money Matters.